Every autumn, a strange thing happens in suburban neighborhoods everywhere. Gardeners who spend real money on soil amendments, who buy bags of compost and peat moss and specialized mulch from the garden center every spring, walk outside in October and carefully collect the fallen leaves from their own trees. The single largest free organic input their property produces all year. Bag after bag after bag. And then they carry those bags to the curb for the city to haul away. They pay to remove what they'll later pay to replace. This happens millions of times, every year, and the gardeners doing it are not doing anything unusual. They're doing exactly what they've been conditioned to do by a culture that has successfully convinced them that autumn leaves are a nuisance, a cleanup problem, a chore, and that the bag of amendment at the garden center is a solution. What if I told you the leaves on your lawn right now are more valuable than the compost you buy? Not equally valuable. More valuable. For specific applications, for specific soil problems, autumn leaves processed a specific way produce an amendment that experienced growers consider genuinely superior to compost. That amendment is called leaf mold, and the reason it isn't discussed more widely isn't because it's difficult to make or hard to use. It's because it takes patience, 6 months to 18 months depending on your method. And patience doesn't make for a good product label. I'm going to show you exactly what leaf mold is, why it does things that compost can't. 3 production methods from the simplest to the fastest, which leaves work best and which one to avoid, and exactly how to apply the finished product. Stay with me through the science section in the middle, because understanding why leaf mold works differently than compost is what makes you commit to making it. This channel is where we turn everyday kitchen waste and overlooked materials into real practical growing knowledge for experienced gardeners who want better soil without spending money. New videos come out every week. If that sounds like something you need, subscribe now. And let's talk about what's falling from your trees. To understand why leaf mold is special, you need to understand the difference between 2 fundamental biological processes. Composting and decomposition sound like the same thing. They're not. Compost, at its best, is primarily a bacterial process. You build a pile with the right carbon-to-nitrogen ratio, the pile heats up, and enormous populations of thermophilic bacteria break down organic material rapidly. They generate temperatures of 130 to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. They cycle nutrients aggressively. They produce a biologically active, nutrient-rich amendment in weeks to months. This is valuable. Compost is the engine of a good garden. I've built an entire channel around it. But leaf mold is something fundamentally different. When fallen leaves decompose slowly, without the nitrogen-rich materials that fuel bacterial composting, without the heat, without the turning, the primary organisms that colonize and break down the leaf tissue are not bacteria.
It's the future of sustainable living.
They're fungi.
This is how we bring life back to the soil.
Specifically, saprophytic fungi.
This is compost.
Species like Trichoderma, Penicillium, Aspergillus, and various Basidiomycetes that have evolved specifically to decompose the tough structural compounds in leaves, cellulose, hemicellulose, and most importantly, lignin. Lignin is the compound that gives leaves their structural rigidity, and it's one of the most resistant organic materials in nature. Bacteria can barely touch it. Fungi have enzymes specifically designed to break it apart. The result of this slow fungal decomposition, after months of patient work, is a material that looks and feels like nothing else in the garden. Dark, crumbly, soft, with a texture somewhere between fine soil and velvet. It smells like forest floor after rain. That's not a coincidence. Forest floor is literally what leaf mold is. The thing that covers the ground in every natural forest on Earth. The thing that has been protecting and building forest soil for hundreds of millions of years is leaf mold. You're not inventing anything. You're replicating what nature does without human intervention in every woodland. Water retention is the headline property, and it's the one that makes experienced growers take leaf mold seriously. Finished leaf mold can hold up to 500% of its own weight in water, 5 times its own weight. To put that in context, Good garden compost holds roughly 150 to 200% of its weight in water. Peat moss holds about 400%. Leaf mold matches or exceeds peat moss's water retention while being completely free, locally produced and renewable. Added to sandy soils that drain too quickly, leaf mold dramatically increases the soil's ability to hold water in the root zone. Plants go longer between waterings. They experience less moisture stress during hot periods. Added to clay soils that compact and crack, the fungal-created structure opens air spaces that improve drainage and root penetration while still retaining moisture. In container potting mixes, leaf mold at 30 to 40% by volume reduces watering frequency by roughly a third compared to mixes without it. The improvement is not subtle. It's the kind of difference you notice the first time you skip a day of watering and your containers are still moist. The fungal communities are the second major benefit, and this is the part most discussions of leaf mold skip entirely because it's harder to see. The fungi that created the leaf mold don't disappear from the finished product. They remain in it, as dormant spores, as living hyphae, as a community waiting to reactivate when conditions favor them. When you apply leaf mold to your garden soil, you're introducing a fungal community directly to the root zone of your plants. This matters because of mycorrhizae, the symbiotic relationship between soil fungi and plant roots that is arguably the most important biological partnership in the plant kingdom. Mycorrhizal fungi extend their hyphae outward from plant roots, dramatically increasing the effective surface area for water and nutrient absorption. A plant with a healthy mycorrhizal network has access to a volume of soil many times larger than its physical root system can reach alone. The fungi that leaf mold introduces aren't all mycorrhizal themselves, but they create the soil conditions, the organic matter, the fungal food web, the physical hyphal networks that support and encourage mycorrhizal colonization. They're the infrastructure that makes the partnership possible. Additionally, many saprophytic fungi that thrive in leaf mold are directly antagonistic to common soil pathogens. Trichoderma species, which are abundant in leaf mold, have been extensively studied as biocontrol agents. They suppress Fusarium, Pythium, Rhizoctonia, and other root rot organisms through a combination of direct parasitism, competition for resources, and the production of antimicrobial compounds. When you spread leaf mold around your plants, you're installing a biological defense system. Compost doesn't do this in the same way. Compost's bacterial community is powerful for nutrient cycling, but doesn't provide the fungal infrastructure that leaf mold does. The two amendments are genuinely complementary. Compost for bacterial activity and nutrient density, leaf mold for fungal diversity and water retention. The best soil I've ever worked in was maintained with both. Making leaf mold is almost absurdly simple. There are 3 methods, each trading off effort against time. Method 1, wire mesh bin. Build a cylinder of chicken wire or hardware cloth, roughly 1 meter across and 1 meter tall. 4 stakes driven into the ground with wire wrapped around them works perfectly. Stuff it with autumn leaves, wet them thoroughly with a hose, and walk away. No turning, no monitoring temperatures, no adjusting ratios. There's no ratio to adjust. It's all carbon. Check the pile once every few weeks during dry weather, and add water if the interior feels dry. Moisture is the one variable that matters. In 12 to 18 months, the leaves will have transformed into dark, crumbly leaf mold ready to use. Method 2. Garbage bags. Even simpler. Fill heavy-duty black garbage bags with leaves, wet them thoroughly, tie the bags shut, and poke a dozen holes in the sides and bottom with a garden fork for air exchange. Stack them somewhere out of the way, behind the shed, along a fence line, wherever you have space. Same timeline as the wire bin, same result. The black plastic absorbs solar heat and retains moisture, which can actually accelerate the process slightly in sunny locations. Method 3. The accelerated approach. If you want to cut the timeline roughly in half, shred the leaves before piling them. A lawnmower with a collection bag does this in a single pass over your leaf pile. Some gardeners spread leaves on the lawn and mow over them twice for a finer shred. The shredding dramatically increases the surface area available for fungal colonization. A shredded leaf might have 10 times the exposed surface of an intact one. More surface area means faster decomposition. Pile the shredded leaves in a wire bin or bag, wet thoroughly, and cover with a tarp. The tarp retains moisture and prevents the pile from drying out in wind and sun. A well-moistened covered pile of shredded leaves can produce usable leaf mold in 6 to 9 months. For most gardeners, this is the method worth using because starting in October means leaf mold ready for spring planting in May or June. Which leaves to use? Maple, beech, birch and ash are the fastest decomposers. 9 to 12 months intact, 6 to 8 shredded. Their relatively thin, soft tissue breaks down easily. Oak leaves are slower due to higher tannin content and tougher structure, 12 to 18 months intact. Sycamore and holly are similarly slow. Shredding reduces all of these timelines significantly. Mix leaf types freely. The diversity of leaf species actually produces better leaf mold because different species attract different fungal communities, creating a more biologically diverse final product. The one leaf type to use sparingly is walnut. Black walnut leaves contain juglone, a naturally occurring allelopathic compound that inhibits the growth of many plant families, including tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, blueberries, and several ornamentals. The juglone does break down during decomposition, and a small proportion of walnut leaves in a large mixed batch, less than 10%, is generally safe once fully decomposed. But a batch that's predominantly walnut, used around sensitive plants, can cause stunted growth, wilting, and yellowing. If you have walnut trees, make your walnut leaf mold separately and use it only around walnut-tolerant plants like beans, squash, corn, and most root vegetables. How to use the finished product. Leaf mold is versatile. Work it into garden beds as a soil conditioner at 2 to 3 inches, lightly incorporated into the top 6 inches. Apply it as a mulch layer around established plants at 2 inches deep. Blend it into container potting mixes at 30 to 40% by volume in place of peat moss. Use it as the base for a seed starting mix. Finely sifted leaf mold with a small amount of perlite is one of the best seed starting media available. Mulch the base of trees and shrubs with it, where the fungal communities it introduces specifically support the mycorrhizal networks that trees have evolved to depend on over millions of years. Let me address concerns. Some gardeners worry that leaf mold will acidify their soil. Fresh leaves are slightly acidic, particularly oak leaves. But by the time the fungal decomposition process is complete, the pH of finished leaf mold is typically between 6 and 7, essentially neutral. The organic acids present in fresh leaves are consumed during decomposition. Apply it without concern about pH effects in most garden situations. Others worry that unfinished leaf mold will tie up soil nitrogen the way fresh wood chips do. This is a legitimate concern with very fresh, partially decomposed material. If you apply half-finished leaf mold, material where you can still identify individual leaf fragments, to garden beds and work it in, the remaining decomposition can temporarily draw nitrogen from the soil. The solution? Either wait until the leaf mold is fully finished or apply it as a surface mulch rather than working it in. Surface-applied organic material decomposes at the surface-soil interface without competing with plant roots for nitrogen. Now let me be honest about the comparison with commercial products. Peat moss holds similar water to leaf mold and is widely available. The difference? Peat moss is harvested from bogs that took thousands of years to form and are being depleted faster than they regenerate. It's shipped from Canada or Northern Europe to wherever you live, generating significant carbon emissions. And it costs money, often significant money, for the quantities a serious garden requires. Leaf mold holds equal or better water, introduces beneficial fungi that peat moss doesn't contain, costs nothing, generates no carbon emissions, and is produced from a resource that literally falls from your trees every year. The comparison is not close. Coir, coconut fiber, is the other common comparison. Coir has good water retention and is renewable, but it's shipped from tropical regions, often has inconsistent salt content that can damage sensitive plants, and doesn't introduce the fungal communities that make leaf mold special. It's a reasonable substitute if you don't have leaf mold. It's not a superior alternative. Here's what to expect on the timeline. The leaves you collect this October will look like slightly flattened, darkened leaves through the winter months. By early spring, the outer leaves will start to look noticeably different. Darker, softer, beginning to lose their individual identity. By midsummer, a well-moistened, shredded pile will be halfway there. Dark, fragrant, crumbly in places, but still with some recognizable structure. By the following autumn, 12 months in, most piles will be finished or very close. What you pull from the bin will look and feel like forest floor. Dark chocolate brown, crumbly, with that unmistakable earthy smell. When you work it into your garden beds, the difference in soil texture will be apparent immediately. When you water, you'll notice the water soaking in more readily and the soil staying moist longer. Here's what I want to leave you with, and it's the thing that keeps me coming back to leaf mold season after season. The leaves falling from your trees right now are not a seasonal inconvenience. They are the most significant free soil amendment your property produces all year. Not the most dramatic, not the fastest. The most significant, because of the volume available, the unique fungal biology they introduce, and the water retention properties that no other free amendment matches. Every bag you send to the curb is a future bag of something you'll pay for at the garden center. Every pile you make into leaf mold is an investment in soil that pays you back with better water retention, healthier root systems, more disease suppression, and a growing system that asks less from you every year. This is a long game approach. Leaf mold takes time. 12 months feels like forever when you're looking forward and nothing when you're looking back. It starts the moment you decide to make it, and time passes regardless of what you do with it. A year from now, you can have rich, finished leaf mold from leaves that are falling right now, or you can have nothing from leaves you sent away. The effort required is an afternoon of collection. Nature does the rest. New videos every week. Subscribe if this is where you want your gardening to go. And tell me in the comments what trees you have in your yard. I'm genuinely curious because each tree species produces leaf mold with slightly different properties, and your experience helps everyone who watches this. I read every comment, and I learn from your observations as much as you learn from mine. The best things you can give your garden don't come from a store. Sometimes they fall from the sky.